Hello everybody, this is Dr. Angelchik, plastic surgeon in Glendale, Arizona, and I'm here with some plastic surgery pearls for you about blepharoplasty. A pearl in medicine is something that we think of as a critical piece of information that gives us insight into a disease or a technique, and I want to share some stuff with you that I hope will be helpful if you're thinking about taking care of your eyelids. Blepharoplasty surgery deals with surgery of the eyelids. That's what it means. So when we talk about eyelid surgery for cosmetic reasons, we're usually trying to correct certain problems. So one of those problems is bags under the eyes. So we want to take these bags and turn it more into something like that. And what's causing that? What's the diagnosis in each patient? We want to determine what's going on with each patient in order to come up with a plan that makes sense. So when we look at eyelids, we're looking at quality of the skin. Are there crepey wrinkles that we can see and loose skin? Under the skin, we're looking at the muscle, the orbicularis oculi muscle that closes the eyelids, okay? The levator muscle that opens the eyelids, the upper eyelids. And we're looking at the fat. The eyeball is surrounded in the socket by a cone of fat. The fat acts as a shock absorber so that when you're moving around, your eyeball is stable and your eyeballs aren't bouncing around. Wouldn't want that. So the eyeball surrounded by the cone of fat is compartmentalized, and in the lower eyelid there are three compartments: medial, which is this area, central and lateral. The upper eyelid, there are also three compartments, but there's only fat in the medial and central compartments. The lateral compartment is occupied by the lacrimal gland, which is the gland that produces our tear film for us. And so that's not something that we typically treat with blepharoplasty, although if the lacrimal gland has fallen down, it can create a bump and we can resuspend it, which is not necessary in most patients. In terms of what we do with the fat in the lower eyelids that's causing this puffiness here, that's kind of evolved a little bit. So in some patients, we're going to remove fat. In other patients, we're going to reposition fat. And the areas where we tend to do that most are in this area here. We call this the nasojugal trough or the tear trough. And sometimes in patients who don't have adequate soft tissue coverage there or have underdeveloped bony structures that aren't providing a lot of support and projection outward from the face, we're going to take some of that fat and reposition it over the orbital rim to smooth the transition between the eyelid and the cheek junction. And that's a diagnosis that we have to make when we see the patient in the office so we can see what's going on. We also need to look at the tone of the lid. So in a young person, if we pull on the lower eyelid, we're going to see that it snaps right back. But in an older person, we're going to see that there's loss of tone. So when I pull on my lower eyelid, you'll see it comes back to position, but it takes a little bit. In a young person, that's just going to snap right back. When somebody has decreased eyelid tone in the lower eyelids, then we're going to think about doing a lid support procedure if we're going to do anything to remove skin and affect the appearance of the lower eyelid surgically or even non-surgically with some of the newer technology we have in the office that I'll talk about. So, and that would involve a support procedure where we're going to take the corner of that lower eyelid and we're going to tack it up to the dense connective tissue overlying the bone on the outer aspect of the eye socket, or what we say in medicine, the orbit. So to look at the upper eyelids, we're going to look at the same things. We're going to look at fat. We're going to look at extra skin that starts to come down and may occlude the eyelid crease or the lash margins. In some people, it affects how they see. The only other thing we're looking at in the upper lid with respect to the intrinsic function of the lid is the levator muscle, which opens the eyelid. As we get older, what we often find is the eyelid starts to fall down on the eyeball, and so we see less of the iris, and the eyelid gets closer to the pupil, and that can make people look tired all the time. And that can be corrected with a procedure to tighten up the muscles that lift the upper eyelid, that open the eyelid. Predominantly, the levator muscle is the one we're going to address, although there are other muscles that can be addressed in some techniques. And then finally, when we're looking at the upper eyelid, what most people don't think about, and which is often an issue, is what's going on with the forehead, what's going on with the brow, because your brow affects the appearance of your upper eyelid. When I lift up my brow here, you can see, well, there isn't that much extra skin in the upper eyelid. That's kind of a brow issue, isn't it? Same thing over here. When I lift that up, most of the upper eyelid extra skin goes away. So in some patients, the answer is going to be to do something to modify the position of the brow. And that can be done through a variety of techniques, and I'm going to get into that in a different video, in addition to addressing the eyelids. So we're looking at excess skin, we're looking at muscle tone, we're looking at how the eye opens, we're looking at the distribution of fat in the orbit around the eyeball, because there are fat pads up above, and sometimes we're going to remove some of that fat. And we're going to look at the surrounding area. We're going to look at the cheek, we're going to look at the forehead, and see what's going on, because sometimes the cheek too can affect the appearance. So if I bring my cheek up like this, it shortens the lower eyelid. And that can be done with lifting, or it can be done with filling, with adding volume into the cheeks in some patients. So we need to make an accurate diagnosis. Also, if you're going to have surgery on your eyelids, we want to make sure that your health of your eyeball and your eyelids is good. So we like to have an eye exam within 12 months before we do a procedure to rule out certain things that could get worse with eyelid surgery. There are certain forms of glaucoma, for example, that can get worse with lower eyelid surgery, and we want to be careful in those patients to not cause a problem with their vision. The other thing is your eyelids are very important to protect your eyeball. So anytime we do a procedure, we don't want to dry the eyeball. That could cause corneal irritation or erosions or ulcers. We want to make sure you can close your eyeball. So that means we don't want to remove excess skin, which makes it difficult for you to either close your eyeball, or at resting position, your eyeball is exposed. So if we take out too much skin in the lower eyelid and we produce this problem, you're going to have a dry, irritated eye. That's called an ectropion. We try to avoid that at all costs. And that can be caused by scarring after surgery, even a properly done surgery. So you have to realize that there are risks with the procedure. But most of the time, those are avoidable if we, and almost everybody, honestly, if we're making the right diagnosis and doing or not doing the things that are going to be safe for that patient. So once we've made a diagnosis and we're going to decide what to do, the blepharoplasty surgery for most patients will be done at a surgery center. If we're just taking skin out in the upper eyelid, that can be done in the office. If we're going to remove fat and do some of the other more extensive things I've talked about, that's usually done at a surgery center. It's done under IV sedation by a board-certified anesthesiologist. You don't have to have a general anesthetic. In fact, I like it if you don't, because you can open and close your eyes, open your mouth, things that adjust the amount of skin tension in the cheek and lower eyelid to help guide us in how much skin we remove. In general, the trend now is to remove less skin in meeting our aesthetic goals. When we do the surgery, it's not a particularly painful operation. Post-operatively, we're going to give you ocular lubricants, ointments, drops to keep the eyeball hydrated and not getting dry. Sometimes right after surgery, there can be some temporary limitations in eyelid closure. We don't want you to get a dry eye, as we've talked about. If you have a dry eye problem before surgery, then we have to be extra careful before we do blepharoplasty surgery or not do the procedure, depending on how severe it is and what the problems are aesthetically. After surgery, people are instructed to keep their head up all the time and to put ice packs on. Frozen peas and baggies work great. We like to do that for several days. takes 1 drop of blood to give you a black eye, so you're going to have a little bit of bruising almost inevitably. Certain types of blepharoplasties cause less bruising, so if we do what's called a transconjunctival lower lid blepharoplasty, where we go through the inside of the eyelid to manage fat, that happens to allow wound fluid that can accumulate in the lid and small amounts of blood to actually leak out and then go in the tear duct and be removed, so that you tend to get less bruising with that procedure, and sometimes we do a transconjunctival approach. Post-operatively, you usually have sutures in for about 6 days. The sutures in the lower eyelid underneath the lash margin are absorbable and they come out. Usually we'll use permanent sutures out on the side and in the upper lid that we'll take out. And we use ointments on the suture lines while you're healing. Once the stitches come out, we'll usually see you back post-op. The visit schedule is 1 day, 1 week, or 6 days for suture removal. The next week to make sure everything's healing well, 6 weeks, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year. Anytime in between, if you need anything, the patients typically don't have a lot of pain. As I said, you can, if we do all 4 eyelids, you can have some fatigue. If you're trying to read at fine print or use a computer screen for hours and hours, you may find for the first 6 weeks or so that can be difficult. Rarely people can have changes in their vision prescription after blepharoplasty. It almost always resolves, but it's possible that someone may need to adjust a prescription because the eyelid is pushing on the eyeball a little bit, and that can change the length of the eyeball slightly and lead to refractive error, but it's very, very rare. Scarring, rarely a problem. Biggest thing post-op as far as touch-ups is if there's slightly extra skin that's still there in the upper eyelid, that may need to be removed. That's a much better problem to have than slightly too little skin, because if you have too little skin, now you're running into problems with dry eye, you can't close properly, and that's a bigger issue for the patient. Doing a little pinch removal of skin in the office when it is necessary is a very minor, easy thing to do. Now, not everybody necessarily needs a blepharoplasty if they have crepey eyelid skin or bags. There are less invasive things that we do. There's resurfacing with laser or Renuvion to tighten up eyelid skin. There are newer technologies also like Accutite, which can be used in patients who have moderate skin excess and fullness from fat pads, who don't want to have surgery or aren't candidates for surgery. That's a procedure we can do in the office under local anesthesia, which can be very helpful. It's going to be most helpful for people who have a moderate problem, not for somebody who has a very severe problem. It may not get them as far as they want to go. Other things you need to know about blepharoplasty: it's typically not a procedure you have to redo. It's not an anti-gravity procedure where things are going to start falling back down over time. Usually a good blepharoplasty is a one-time procedure for most patients. When we do it, we want you to look natural. We don't want it to look strange. We don't want it to look different. We want it to look better. Better to me means it looks like you look refreshed, the eyelid shape is good, it looks like what it looked like before, only it's better. People who see you 6 months later should think you look great, but maybe not be able to put their finger on exactly why.